figure out where the front is. I think everybody here has got a college degree, and so you can probably figure out where the front is, right? You don't have a copy? They're right here. They're floating around. You don't have a college degree? Then that's an even better reason that you could figure out how to. No, go away. That's an even better reason for you to be able to know how to do this. Might be in college they taught you stuff that you forgot how to do this.
This is different than
This is, that's why you're getting it. It is different. Same maamar, just a different version of the same maamar. No, it's out there. This is the old one. No, this is something else. Okay? So it says on the top, Sefer Maamar Tafshin Lamed Gimel. Same maamar, except as we mentioned last time, there are two versions of the maamar because it's not muga, it's not edited by the Rebbe. So there are two versions of the maamar. This is the version that Rabbi Khan wrote down. And this is the version that for sure the Rebbe saw, because before it was printed, the Rebbe would see it. The other version, I'm not sure whether they ever saw it. But this is just the version that I feel much more comfortable with. And so, having been surprised by what we were looking at last time, when I took a Sefer Maamarim Tafshin Lamed Gimel off the shelf, and it had the other version. The other version is the version you'll find in Torah Menachem, the gold and black books. So they printed someone named David Feldman, his version. This is Rav Yol. So, it's not anything personal, it's just what you're used to. This is what came out first and was around for a long time. Okay, so we're just going to start in the beginning again. We're going to go through the first paragraph rather quickly because part of it we saw. Okay? And I said in the first paragraph there are 4 questions, but I wasn't telling you the truth because the one we looked at on Thursday, it didn't have 4 questions, and so that became rather obvious rather quickly. Zeh Hayom Tchilas Ma'asecha. Again, part of Tfilas Musaf. Okay, it's based on a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah, but this is a very central part of Tfilas Musaf. Zeh Hayom Tchilas Ma'asecha. Anybody know the next 3 words? Zichar and L'Yom Rishon, a remembrance for the first day. A very difficult verse. It's not a pasuk, right? It's a verse in davening. Right? What's Yom Rishon? Which Yom Rishon exactly are we remembering? Okay, we're not dealing with that part of the pasuk. Baruch Hashem. V'yadua diuk b'zeh b'drush Rabbeinu Nesienu. This question we saw on Thursday. The world was created on the 25th day of Elul. Right? The first day of creation was the 25th day of Elul. The 6th day of creation was Aleph Tishrei. So why do we say on Rosh Hashanah, this day is the beginning of your deeds? It's not the beginning. And as we saw in the version that we saw on Thursday, if anything, it's the end. It's the last day of creation, not the first day of creation. We also have to understand 2 more things. Said this is question 2a and 2b. Inyan Tchilas Ma'asecha, the idea of Tchilas Ma'asecha. Shemashmoi, the understanding of that, sheyesh lema'asechot tchila v'seif, that there is to your deeds a beginning and an end. V'hara yedua, shekulam niskarim b'skira achas lefanav, which is a pasuk that again was quoted in the maamar that we saw on Thursday, the version. What does Chazal say? That the Kadosh Baruch Hu, all of reality is encompassed in one glance. Kadosh Baruch Hu in one glance sees everything. In other words, what was actually quoted again, which is helpful, in the maamar that we saw on Thursday, B'machshava achas bara alma, right? That the Kadosh Baruch Hu created the whole world in one thought. In other words, all of time and all of space is contained in one thought in the Eibishter's life. Boom, you just had a thought. Remember what it was? Just had another 5 in the meantime. Right? Anything of great importance that if it didn't happen, you couldn't be? Okay. So in case you're ever feeling a little too much self-importance, not that we're not important, but we're very important. As long as we take the word self out of the conversation, then we're very important. Once we put the word self in there, then we start becoming irrelevant. Right? How big are we if we are somehow contained in that one thought of the Eibishter. Anybody who ever existed, anybody who ever will exist, all of time, all of space, every beetle that ever crawled along on some forest floor, everything that ever happened or will happen, is contained in that one thought. Okay. So that's really quite astounding in terms of what that means we're about. Right? So what are we about? How can we, Taka, connect to something real by connecting to that one thought, be realizing we're part of that one thought and what the purpose of that one thought is all about, and then what's our life all about? But as soon as we start getting into self-importance, we might want to remind ourselves that at this particular point in time, we're 1/8 billionth of one thought in the life of the Eibishter. But even that 1/8 billionth is not true, because that's only counting humans. There's all sorts of other stuff going on, and there was all sorts of other stuff going on, and there will be all sorts of other stuff going on that's also contained in that one thought. Okay. That doesn't mean we're not important. Why are we important? Because the Eibishter said we're important, and he gave us all sorts of important things to do. Sometimes we get sidetracked by the unimportant things to do. So the Eibishter, all of reality sees with one glance. So why do we say beginning and end? There's no beginning and end in one. I mean, on some level you might say, okay, there's the beginning of it, so to speak. But even that is not so clear. But there's definitely no beginning and end to the extent that it's shaykh to time. Hainu, Shorosh v'Seif, the head and the end, the beginning and the end, they're equal. The beginning of your deeds, as if they're not the end. What do you mean they're not the end? The end and the beginning are one and the same. So therefore, for all intents and purposes, there is no end and no beginning. Similarly, this is 2b, question 2b. Shehu Loshen Rabim. This is a language of plurality. The Kavan Shekol Niskarim B'skirachas Lefanav, that since all of reality is one glance, so to speak, one thought in the life of the Eibishter, Harinin Zeh Echad U'Maiseh Echad. It's one action. There's no actions. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't create the world within the context of time. He creates time, but he's not affected by that time and not limited by that time. So mitzad the Eibishter, it's all one. Mitzad you and I, there's differentiation ad ein sof. But mitzad the Eibishter, it's all one. So there's no maaseh echad, but maaseh echad, machshava echad.
Even when we say that Hashem's recreating the world every second, that's still in that one, it's like a one thing.
It's relative to you and I. That simply helps us appreciate the fact that you know, what's the mushal for that is 35 millimeter film. So now any of you who understand how the new video works, what's it called? Digital video works. So fine, it works the same way. I just don't understand how it works. So, but what I've seen with my eyes is 35 millimeter film, which you've probably also seen, right? A movie reel. So in a movie reel, how does it work? So there's a picture, there's an empty space, and there's another picture, and then there's an empty space. There's another picture, and there's an empty space. And what's the purpose of all of that? Why not just shine one picture up on the screen? Well, because if you shine one picture up on the screen, so of course we've got a static image. You'd see the Empire State Building. Fine. There it is. Right? Okay. But it'll just be there. What allows for the change in that which you see? The fact that a different image is passing by, the light that's shining it onto the screen, a different image is passing by, and it's passing by so quickly that you don't notice, and in digital this is even more seamless, you don't notice that you're changing pictures, right? That it seems to be one constant picture, right? But really, what is it? Thousands of pictures with a very, very small space in between. So Chazal tell us that the world is constantly going from a state of yeshin to ayin into yeshin to ayin, right? From a state of being into non-being into being into non-being, right? What is that allowing for, so to speak? The Rebbe could do it a different way if he wants, but this is the way he did it, so you and I could understand it. What does that allow for? Change. The state of non-being in between those two states of being allows the second state of being to be slightly different than the first state of being, so to speak. So there's movement, there's change. It's not static. It's not a picture. It's a motion picture. Reality is a motion picture, so that's how you and I experience it. Right? So what is it that allows that to be? So the way Chazal described it is the world is going in and out of yesh. Yesh mi'ayin v'yesh, yesh v'ayin v'yesh v'ayin. It's exactly, and that's how digital works as far as I understand, right? There's an image and then not an image, then an image and not an image. It's just so fast, of course, that your eye can't see it. If you look at old motion pictures, so it's rather jerky, right? The technology wasn't so good. So you can see the transition from one to another to a certain degree. You might have had those little books as kids, I don't know, in the age of computers, whether you had these, but these were a lot of fun for us, right? Where you turn the pages and the little stick man would move in the book. Why? Well, slightly different picture each page, right? And so you wouldn't see the different picture, you just see the motion of this little stick man in the book. That was like a big thing for us. I remember being very excited watching that. I think anybody who had a computer would probably think that was pretty boring, but we didn't have a computer. So we thought it was pretty exciting. We thought playing on the street was also pretty exciting. We used to do that too. With real hockey sticks and real tennis balls and real nets. No skates. No rollerblades because there weren't. Just feet. No hitting either. We weren't allowed to hit. We're allowed to fight just because we wanted to make it real. But that was for our Canadian here. Let's go to the hockey game, eh? Chrissy, Dougie. Canada, Canada. Great place. Canada is America without the angst of running the world. It's just a bunch of people going to work and drinking beer. That's about all they do. Okay, so yes, the world changes and the world isn't static, and the way we understand that is the world is going in and out of creation, but all of that is contained in that thought also, because that's just the so to speak, mechanism that allows you and I to experience reality the way we do. It's not a picture. So now the Rebbe is going to answer this questions 2a and 2b right away. The inyan tchilas ma'asecha, and again we saw this. The idea of tchilas ma'asecha shayich le'eres penimim is relative to inner lights. We'll explain that in a minute. Hamislavshim b'seder ishtalshus, that are closed in seder ishtalshus. In other words, you and I know this. We've learned it. We've talked about it. There are different levels of godly light. We talked about 3 in the last, a few maamarim, quite a few times actually in the last maamarim. But 2 basic states of light, mamale and sovev. And what's mamale? Light that fills. What does it fill? Kalim. What do kalim allow light to do? Vessels express itself in finitude. The kli limits the expression of the light. The kli hides the infinite expression of the light and reveals a finite expression of the light, which is what allows the light to be revealed to, so to speak, the other. Right? We've talked about this at length. Okay? Mashal, moon in the sky. Right? The sunlight that's filling that whole sky. You can't see any of that sunlight. Why not? Because there's no kalim for it. There's no atmosphere for it to bounce off. There's nothing up there. Right? Okay, whatever that means, nothing up there. Okay, so that sunlight is coming from the sun below the horizon all the way up to the moon in the middle of the sky. Once it hits a kli called the moon, all of a sudden you see a reflection of the sunlight. Right? So it's limited to the space of the moon. Well, what that whole space to the right, of your vantage point, that whole space, what's it full of? Sunlight. It's not jumping from over there to the moon. It's traveling through space from wherever it is down there below the horizon up to the moon. Right? Can't see it. Why not? No kalim. It's not that the light's not there. The light just isn't revealed to the other. The kli allows the light to be revealed to the other. Now, once it's revealed to the other, so of course it reveals itself in limitation. Right? I once said this to a group of people, and an older woman said, older meaning, middle-aged woman said, no, you can't see it because it's just going too fast. I said, wait a minute. When it hits the moon, what happens to it? Right. And what does it then do? Flies at 186,000 miles per second into your eye and smashes into your eye at 186,000 miles per second. Doesn't hurt. I wear glasses just in case. Izzy also. He's a smart guy, is he? Just in case it's too fast, you slow it down a little, right? It's like, what do you mean it's too fast? Everything you see is going 186,000 miles per second, right? Okay. So it's not that it's going too fast. It's in a vacuum, right? And so you don't see it because there's no kalim. When it shines through the atmosphere, so there's all sorts of stuff in the atmosphere, dust particles and all sorts of stuff. And so you see the light reflecting off each other, and it evidently is blue. It looks blue to you and I. When we look up there, it looks blue. Why does it look blue?
Nitrogen.
Nitrogen? Yeah, that's why it looks blue. What in what in the atmosphere? Yeah. Okay. No, I guess I'm old enough to know why it looks blue, but I never quite figured that part out. Okay. Someone once told me it's a reflection of water. I said, come on. I know the Earth has a lot of water, but that's, in the middle of Minnesota. How can it be blue? Anyway, okay. So, and when it shines through the atmosphere in a more powerful way, when it's right over there on the horizon, so it's setting, right? It shines through the horizon, and there's a lot more stuff happening, so a lot more refraction, and you see all sorts of amazing light. And, lights and colors. And if there's some pollution there, it's even better. Pollution makes for great sunsets, right? Because it's bouncing off all sorts of junk that we've thrown in the air that we're breathing. Just don't think about it too much, right? Okay. So that's how light works. So that's how godly light works. So godly light, it's not reflecting off the vessels, it's being clothed in the vessels. That is the light of differentiation. What allows for the differentiation? Vessels, kalim. Light itself is infinite. The nature of the light itself is infinite, and that aspect of the light is concealed by the vessels. What's revealed by the vessels? The ability of the light to express itself in finite. Which itself is interesting, and that's not our topic, but how can that be? Okay, that's there's a lot of Chassidus on that, obviously. But that's not our topic now. So what did the Rebbe just say? He answered question 2 and 3. Why are we talking from the vantage, why are we saying Tchilas Ma'asecha? Because we're talking about reality from the point of view of created reality. Eres Panimim, light that are inner lights, meaning they're clothed in something, they penetrate into something, they become the inner reality of something, that are mislavshim, that are clothed in Seder Ishtarshlis, that means the 4 worlds, and specifically this world. That's our vantage point. And within the context of that state of reality, what is there? Beginning and end. Masecha. God created this and he created this. 2 actions, so to speak. It's not really 2 actions. By the Eibishter, it's all one. By you and I, it appears as 2. Right? Does that mean God's 2? God's not 2. Don't be silly. Right? Turn this all into one light, right? Okay, I understand. There's all sorts of them, right? Turn it all into one. That one light on the ceiling, how many states of differentiated reality would it be reflecting off? Yeah, thousands and tens of thousands in this room alone. Okay. Does that mean there's tens of thousands of sources of light? No. The light is just being revealed. There's one light. It's just being revealed in all sorts of different ways. By what? By the kelim in the room. Right? Amnon's famous book. Right? How many, right? All those different colors are completely concealed in the light that's out here until it hits this kli. And then what do you experience? Finite expressions of color. What's in here looks colorless. But ultimately, what do we know that's in there? The ability, the potential to be expressed in an infinite amount of color. It's just not revealed. It's revealed when it hits something. Yay, Amnon's book. Amnon doesn't write in that book, he just brings it to the sentence. It's our mushal for reality. V'chein inyan tchila v'seif. So too inyan tchila v'seif. So we asked the question, why is Rosh Hashanah tchilas ma'asecha when really Chaf Hei Elul is? We didn't answer that. We asked 2 more questions. What tchila and seif? What's tchilas ma'asecha? What does that mean? What's tchila? There's no tchila and there's no seif. What's ma'asecha? There's no deeds, plural. Right? Oh, we answered those 2 questions by saying we're looking at things from the point of view of created reality, where there is a beginning and an end, and where there are ma'asecha, where there is plurality and multiplicity in time and space. Okay, so now the Rebbe is going to ask a 4th question. V'tzarech lahavin. You have to understand. Madua inyan Rosh Hashanah Briyas Olam Shayach Tafka Lebechina Zu. Why is Rosh Hashanah and the creation of the world relevant specifically to this quality of reality? Meaning, you say, what do you mean? I understand. That's what B'riyas Olam is all about. B'riyas Olam is all about creating a finite expression of existence. Okay. So clearly that's not the Rebbe's question. The Rebbe's question is why, when you and I stand on Rosh Hashanah and relate to the truth of reality, why do we relate to truth within the context of a relative truth, which is the relative existence of what you and I experience, and not absolute truth, which is Hashem Echad, Ushmei Echad, Ein Od Milvadai, it's all Him. Why are we talking? That should be our vantage point, right? That's the Rebbe's question. You don't like the question? That's okay, but that's the Rebbe's question, right? It's a simple question to understand, right? You might say, no, you have an answer to the question, why it is we should be dealing with it from our point of view, but that's not your job. Your job isn't to answer the question. Your job is to appreciate the question. The Rebbe's answer is usually better than ours. Right? But that's the Rebbe's question. Why is it on Rosh Hashanah that we're talking about reality from a relative point of view? We're talking about absolute reality. Ein Od Milvadai. It's all the Eibishter. Right? Aren't we talking truth with a capital T? No, we're talking truth with a small t. Why? Why are we looking at things from that point of view? Okay, I understand. That's our point of view. But Seder, that might be an answer. We'll see. We'll see what the answer is. But that's the question. Yeah?
Why would we not consider it from our point of view on Rosh Hashanah?
Because it's not absolute truth. It's relative truth. I mean, to absolute truth, not I.
But in that way, all of Chassidus is relative truth, huh?
No. Adarabah. Lots of Chassidus talks about lack of true existence of this world and what really exists is Elokus. Right? Now, it's true, right? It is true that a lot of Chassidus will explain how the world works. And how could it possibly be? But that itself is a very interesting thing, right? That Chassidus, the a priori assumption of Chassidus is God exists, and the question is whether I do. Right? Most philosophy, including Jewish philosophy, comes from the point of view of I exist, does God? No, that's not the question. The only time any chapter in Tanya, in any of the 5 books of Tanya, ends with a question is in Shayichet V'Amuna, where the Rebbe asks, he ends a chapter with the question, so then how can the world exist? The Eibishter, that's Pasha. How can we be? Which is part of what we mentioned is a question and discussed in Chassidus, how can infinite godly light express itself in a finite way? But okay, it's part of that question. Now, the part of the answer to that question is, of course, and you know the answer is that God's not infinite. So he's not limited by infinite. It's beyond infinite. Infinite's limited. One of the things the infinite can't do is express itself in finitude. That's why it's called infinite, not finite. Okay, so that's a discussion into its own, which we'll touch in the mind. But the question is, why on Rosh Hashanah are we not talking about God? Basically, let's just talk about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why are we talking about us? Meaning our reality. Okay, we know our reality. Maybe I should be contemplating His. Let's see what the Rebbe says. What the answer is. To understand this, we must first say as follows. Mashnis bar le'il, that which was said earlier. If you look at footnote 5, it'll say, B'dibra maschi yom tiv shel Rosh Hashanah, the leil erev Rosh Hashanah. Meaning the Rebbe said a maamar the last day of Tafshin Lamed Beis, right? 2 days before this maamar. This maamar was said on the Rebbe used to bring on the second day of Rosh Hashanah in the afternoon and say a maamar. All right? So that's this maamar. The Rebbe would often bring erev Rosh Hashanah. Chaf Tes Elul, and say a maamar. So the Rebbe is referring back to that maamar. Mashin Isbar Le'il, that which you said earlier, meaning 2 days ago. Be'inyan Kavonas B'Yas Olam, and you all know this, the intention of the creation of the world. The Amr Razal, Chazal said, Nis'aver Kadosh Baruch Hu liyos lo yizbarach dir b'tachtenu. The Kadosh Baruch had a taiva for a dwelling place in the lower realms. And the Rebbe is going to explain that very, very, very clearly to us. what that means. Shezeu ikar tam habriya. This is the essential reason for creation. There are other reasons given in Chazal. That's a reason given in the Medrash Tanchuma. We've talked about that. Tanchuma, Parshas Nosei, Ois Tes Zayin. That's the source of the idea that the Rebbe created the world because he wanted a dir b'tachtonim. Medrash Tanchuma is written by Rabbi Tanchum, who is a Tana of Rav Huna, who you have run into in the Gemara, I'm sure. It's hard to learn very much Gemara without running into Rav Huna. Rav Huna, Rav Chizda. So that Chassidus understands to be the ikar tam of creation. There are other reasons for creation. That the Eibishter wanted to be Megala Rachmanusa. He wanted to reveal his mercy. Teva Toiv Lahetiv. It's the nature of good to give good. So he wanted to give goodness to us. Right? Okay. So those generally tend to relate to what we get. We get his rachamim, we get his toiv. The ultimate toiv, of course, is a relationship with him, which is what he gives us. Okay, so those are all true. But the ultimate expression of it is what's the taiva mitzad the Eibishter above? What does he get out of it? So he gets a dir b'tachtenim. Why does he want a dir b'tachtenim? So we explain. It's called the taiva. We'll see. The Rebbe is going to explain that to us. Shezeu ikar tam habriya. This is the essential reason for the Bria Sheshar Bebechinas Hataiva Vatainug Shalamayla. The source of this of the creation is this taiva, which is a hard word to understand relative to the Ebshir. Again, the Rebbe is going to explain it to us. Vatainug, and the pleasure of above. And pleasure we ran into in Anila Doidi. Ukemaimer, like the statement of Chazal, Sheikav Amudei Sheish. His thighs are pillars of marble. And what's that? We saw this. Zeh Hayom shenishteke HaKadosh Baruch Hu livraisei. That's the world that HaKadosh Baruch Hu nishteke. He longed to create it. A chukah is a longing for something. Someone's distant from you. You have a chukah to see them. So the Eibishter had a longing for the world. So the world is referred to as Amudei Sheish. Right?
It's not shaking.
What?
It's not referred to the pillar. It's
Yeah.
referred to as the marble.
No, the world is pillars of marble. The world is that. What's the world? Something that. Why is the world called Sheikav? His thighs, literally, because he desired that world.
What's the connection between thighs and desire?
Well, that's actually very interesting. The Mefarshim on the pasuk in simple pshat relate to the fact that the thighs are very connected to one of the most powerful points of pleasure in human experience. And we're talking about the love of the Kadosh Baruch Hu and Am Yisrael. Right? These are two lovers talking. It's shiur. So that's how the Mefarshim explain it. Right? But here, it's in this medrash, it's not focusing on that so much. Yes, it's talking about pleasure, but it's focusing more on the word shokav dafka, thighs, and making a play on the words, the place of chukah, which is also based on that, but it's actually a play on the words. The place of chukah, the Eibishter's chukah, the Eibishter's longing is amudei sheish. What's that? Gashmias. Zeh Hayom. That's what I'll say. What's his longing? Pillars of marble. Was that a world? A physical world. All right. That's this medrash. Right. Yeah? All right, it's okay?
Yeah.
Oh, now the Rebbe says something very, very important, which isn't mentioned in the Maamar Chazal. V'dir b'tachtenim nifeles al yedei avodas adam. How does this dir b'tachtenim, how does this dwelling place in the lower realms come about? Through our avodah. V'zeu atam, and this is the reason. Now we can answer our question, even though we have to understand things much more deeply, obviously. But in general, this is how the Rebbe's maamarim work: a general answer, and then we'll explain it more deeply. What's the general answer? Right? We've just we're answering the fourth question, not the first one yet. Right? Although that's also going to be answered. Right? Actually, this first one also right now. Right? Tir b'tachteinu felt idea avodas ha'adam, v'zeu atam, and this is the reason. Masha Rosh Hashanah nikra b'shem tchilas ma'asecha. Why is Rosh Hashanah called the beginning of your deeds? The beginning of your deeds is Chafei Elul. No. What begins on Rosh Hashanah? Ki b'yom zeh haisa brias Adam Harishon. This was the creation of Adam Harishon. Shehu b'avedose pa'al es inyan adir b'tachtenim. That he, through his avodah, brought about the inyan of dir b'tachtenim. We'll see that Adam Harishon actually brought that about temporarily. We'll see what that means. But what happened on the sixth day of creation? It's the beginning. Right, humans were created. And what are humans all about? The purpose of creation. Without humans, there can't be a dir b'tachtenim, because what does the Eibishter want? He wants our avodah. Right? Do animals play their part? But say, do they sing their praises? They do whatever they can do. That's very, very good. But what does the Eibishter want? He wants the avodah of someone who has the possibility of not doing it. Right? That's us. We've talked about that a number of times. What makes us so unique? Right? That we actually have the ability not to do what the Eibishter created us to do. Therefore, when we do it, it actually means something. And that's what produces the most powerful expression of tachtonim down here in Eilam Hazeh. What's the lower realms all about? A place of concealment. How concealed is the Eibishter to a lion? I'm not sure. Right? But a lion naturally acts within the context of the will of his creator, completely, totally, naturally, and can't do anything else. Is he aware of that? I have no idea what's going on in the head of a lion. Can the Baal Shem Tov talk to a lion and hear what the lion sings, the praises the lion sings to the Eibishter? Yes, the Baal Shem Tov learned how to do that. How do you do that? I don't know. I've got other issues in life that I'm working on first. Right? Not worried about getting there. Right? There are people who that's the first place they want to go. I just want to learn how to sing with the birds. Good. How about learning how to keep Shabbos first? No. First I have to learn. Okay, good. Good. Have a good life. Right? But we're supposed to keep Shabbos first. We're supposed to figure that out. Once we figure that all out, then you know Shulchan Aruch Baal Peh, and you know all Chassidus Baal Peh, so then you can figure out how to talk to the birds. Right? Can you? Baal Shem Tov knew how to. I don't know. I mean, it must be quite interesting. We'll see. Certainly Adam Harishon knew how to. Because what did Adam Harishon do? Well, the Rebbe is going to teach us what did Adam Harishon do in creation. He got all of creation to experience and realize the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That means the trees, the flowers. What the Maggid say about the Alter Rebbe? We're about to daven on Tuesday morning. I hope you've been looking at the machzor and getting used to what you're going to say. One of the most beautiful things we say is we talk about the fact that physical reality will express God's greatness, right? And v'yeda kol pa'ul ki ata pa'altu v'yavin kol yitzur ki ata yitzarte. But when the Chazan gets to that in Shmon Esrei, when he repeats it, he's going to say it v'yeda kol pa'ul ki ata pa'alte v'yavin kol yitzur ki ata yitzarte. Everything that's created will realize that you created it. The Alter Rebbe didn't make it to lunch by the Maggid on Rosh Hashanah, and the Maggid asked where they used to call the Alter Rebbe Zalman the Litvak, because he was from Lito, so he was called Zalman the Litvak. Where's Zalman the Litvak? He was also the youngest. Where's Zalman the Litvak? So they said he's still davening. So the Maggid says Zalman the Litvak, he was davening by a pole. So Zalman the Litvak is going to stand by that pole and say V'yeda kol pa'ul ki ata pa'alta until the pole understands it. So the Maggid said. Now he made it to lunch. We know the Alter Rebbe ate at some point after that in his life. Did he do that to the pole? I don't know. But he left. He finished davening. Personally, it's my favorite line in all of Rosh Hashanah davening. Such an amazing line. It's also sung very beautifully. If someone has a good voice, it would really sound nice. So why is Rosh Hashanah called Chilas Maseki b'yem zeh haisa b'rias Adam Harishon? Shu b'avedasa palas inyan adir b'tachtenim. What did the Eibishter want? The Eibishter created a world. He wanted that's a world of hiddenness, and he wanted you and I to reveal him there. And the Rebbe is going to explain that, and we're going to go quickly and see part of it. Okay, when does that start? That starts Rosh Hashanah. That didn't. Right? When's opening night? When they open the curtains. What have they been doing for the last week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
Preparing the stage.
Preparing the stage. Right? They're preparing the stage. When do the curtains open? Opening night. That's opening night. You don't say this play didn't start 3 weeks ago. This play hasn't started yet. Everything's being set up, and there's the what are they called? Whatever, the roadies, whatever they call them. They're busy doing whatever they're doing. But these people are extremely important, right? Without them, there's no play. Okay, so all this stuff is being set up, right? I guess the actors are around because they're probably wanting to see what it's going to look like, but they're basically irrelevant at this point, right? It's not about them. It's about setting it all up, right? Okay, I don't know how long that takes. Maybe a day, maybe 5 days, right? And then all of a sudden, opening night, everybody's where they're supposed to be. The curtain opens. Now the play starts. What's opening night? Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is opening night. Why? Because now it's starting. What's starting? The avodah. The Rebbe is going to get a avodah. How? Because you and I are going to do something that he wants done. Okay, amazing. And this isn't just Adam Arishon and Gan Eden. This is the Yidden Bechlal throughout history. The Yisrael Kurim Adam. The Gemara in Yevamos explains the difference between Ha-Adam and Adam. Adam refers to the Jewish people. Ha-Adam refers to humankind in general. So Adam is us. But through our Avodah, we bring about a dir b'tachteinim. And that's why Rosh Hashanah is the first day of creation. It's not the first day of creation. The creation started 5 days before, but it's the first day where the purpose of creation can be fulfilled. And that's happening with the avodah of Adam Rishon. Let's go quickly weiter in our little booklet that Hershey made us. As we said, the Rebbe usually asks the question, gives a headline. This is the basic answer. Now let's understand it more deeply. And I just want you to see this before Rosh Hashanah. This is our last shiur before Rosh Hashanah. When you see this, what this idea the Rebbe says. Hine. Zeh shenis'ave Kadosh Baruch Hu liyos lo yisbarach, that which Kadosh Baruch had a taiva for dir b'tachteinim. Yesh bezeh, there is in this statement of Chazal beis inyanim, 2 ideas that it's important for us to understand. What's that? Ha'echad, the rishon, hu zeh shenis'ave, the word nit'aveh, that he had a taiva, that word is zehu. The leg on the hay is missing. Okay? It's not zadu. It's zehu. Zadu is a word. Zehu. Shenis'ave shezehu. This is inyan shalamayla mitam v'das. This is something that's beyond intellectual understanding. It's super rational. That's why we've talked about this a number of times. That's why the word nit'aveh is used. A taiva is something that can't be explained rationally. I have a taiva for a hot cup of tea, but it's 120 degrees out. That's a taiva. Right? I have a rutzah and a desire for a cold glass of water. That makes sense. Okay. Or vice versa on a cold winter day. All right? Shezeu shenis'ave, I'm sorry, who said shenis'ave zeu inyan shelamayla mitam v'das, beyond rational understanding. Ulamayla miseder ishtashla is obviously coming from a place beyond the natural order. Bechinas, what's the source of it? A tainug shelamayla. Supernal pleasure. And we've talked about this also. We talked about it in Anila Doidi V'Doidi Li. Tainug, pleasure, a place in you that powers a tremendous amount of what you do, but it is completely and totally super rational. Why does this thing give you pleasure? You have no clue. It just does. And each of us will get the pleasure from different things. Right? There are acquired tastes. A person can work on getting pleasure from something. That's true. But in general, pleasure is something that's l'mayla mitam v'das. You, Bezrat Hashem, will be blessed with many children. You'll have some of them that will eat the corn and throw the peas off the plate, and then someone else will eat the peas and throw the corn off the plate. Why? Well, this one gets pleasure from corn, and this one gets pleasure from peas. Why? I don't know. He just does. Right, okay. And this one will get pleasure from reading books. Naturally, he'll just be one of those kids who picks up every book he sees. And this one will get pleasure from digging holes in the ground outside with a shovel. Right? And this one will get pleasure from playing with dolls. And this one will get pleasure from playing with trucks. And then you'll have a hard time dealing with the fact that people actually think men and women are different. Right? Because all your girls will be playing with dolls and all your boys will be going, and your girls will play with Lego and make a house, and your boys will play with Lego and make a gun. You never told them about a gun. They never heard of a gun. They've never seen a gun. They're not watching television with guns. And what do they make? Guns. What are you doing? I made a gun. Wait, what's a gun? Where have you ever heard of a gun? Oh, I'll bet it's coming from a deep subconscious place in me, this gun. Don't you know? Ah, sorry, I didn't know. Yeah, men and women are the same. All these people are saying this don't have children. And they don't. That's part of the problem. They don't. Right? If you know the difference, that's how you make children. If you don't know the difference, you're gonna have a hard time having children. So then they don't, and then they never figured this out. It's so crazy. Like it's just a crazy idea. Right? Are there similarities? Of course there's similarities. Are there men who have certain aspects of their personality that are very feminine? Yes, absolutely. Are there women who have certain aspects of the personality that are very masculine? Absolutely, 100%. Are they the same? Oh, Bemet. Right? Just meet them when they're 2 and 3 and tell me they're the same. Completely different. Okay, so that's the first thing. Tainug. Some place in the Eibishter that's completely beyond understanding. Vabase. What's the second aspect of Dir B'Tachtenim that's important to understand? Husha Taiva. What is this Taiva of the Eibishter? He Shadira Tia B'Tachtenim Dafka. That the Dira should be in the lower realms specifically. The Eibishter wants to be revealed. You and I have learned about a world, and it's a world of, so to speak, finite reality, where God is revealed in a very, very powerful way. That world is called the world of Atzilus. What happens in the world of Atzilus? There's Or Mamale, there's actually light that fills Kalim, but what are the Kalim in Atzilus called? It's not a world of creation, it's a world of godly reality. And what are the Kalim in Atzilus called? There's 10 of them. Spheres. Different aspects of godly reality are revealed in that world. Above that world, so to speak, those aspects of godly reality haven't come into a state of revelation. Do they exist? Yes, but they're subsumed in infinite godly light. So if you look at infinite godly light, do you see chesed, do you see gvura, do you see chokhmah, do you see bina? No. Is it in there? It's in there. I just don't see it. Why? Because I'm looking at infinite reality, so I don't see specific reality. Differentiated reality. Okay, what happens in Elam Atzilus? Godliness expresses itself in 10 different ways, meaning all of a sudden there's a revelation of these different aspects of godly reality. Not that they come into being, they've always been, they've just never been revealed as separate and unique. Yeah? Okay. What's there? Godliness, revealed godliness. So the Eibishter wants to be revealed? Stop it at Atzilus. You want to be revealed? Create all sorts of worlds and then get to Elam Atzilus, absolute revelation. It's called Gilui Ahelim. The revelation of what was heretofore hidden. What was heretofore hidden? All these 10 different aspects of godly reality were hidden. Now they're in a state of revelation. Now you know that there's chesed, there's godly chesed, and there's godly gvura, and there's godly chokhmah, and there's godly bina. It's all up there, but you just didn't see it. Now, so to speak, you can see it. Who? Well, there's no one there to see it. But it's there. It's in a state of revelation. 10 spheres. Great. Beautiful. You want to be revealed? Stop there. No, he didn't stop there. Kept going into a world called Bria, where there's angels. Angels have no hang-ups about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All they think about is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All they want to do is reveal HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They're like clear vessels, allowing the light to shine out. They don't hide godliness at all. They just see themselves as kalim, vessels to reveal godliness. Okay. So then there's a lower level below that called Yetzirah, which is also angels, which have a little more of their own separate experience of separateness, a little bit, but they still are ultimately allowing godly light to shine through them. And then you come into Elam Hazeh, which completely and totally hides godliness, and everything you see says, I am, don't be here because I'm taking up this space, you can't, go away. All right? This hand just won't let this hand in. Hello, it's you. You're the same person. Don't be such a moron. He's also you. You're the same. Nope, won't do it. He's a yesh, won't let anything else in his space. In Elam, what do we say about the angels? Right? They're just all into unity, and they all want to serve God together, and they're giving space to everybody else to serve God. Right? Here in Elam Hazeh, you walk into a shul, what's the first thing you hear? Excuse me, you're sitting in my seat. Right? Okay. You don't have to say that the first time. You know, if the guy doesn't belong there, so let him sit there the first time. Afterwards, you can say, you know, if you're going to come every day to shul, so I generally sit there. You're allowed to say that. You generally sit there. Okay, but the first day, let him sit there. What's the big deal? What's going to happen? Where you end up sitting, God will probably hear you from there too. Might even hear you better because you let that guy sit there. Who knows? You're allowed, though, to say at some point, excuse me, that's if there's nowhere to sit and it's Rosh Hashanah and you bought the seat, you're allowed to tell him, excuse me, I bought this seat, could I sit here? That's why you pay, because you don't want to have to stand up for 4 hours. That makes sense. And you're allowed to say it if a guest comes into yeshiva, so the seats are for you, not for guests. If there's an empty seat, a guest can find an empty seat. You're allowed to sit. You'll have to talk to Rabbi Vichnin how to pull that off. If there's no seats and there's some guests sitting in seats, we want guests, but it's for you, not for them. Okay, let's go 1 or 2 more lines, and then we're stopping. What's the whole idea? Now the Rebbe says an amazing thing. Hainu, he wants to deal with Tachtoinu. 4th line. Hainu, begidre ishtalshlus, in the realm of ishtalshlus, meaning the realm of the 4 worlds, ba'ofen galui, in a revealed way. Now the Rebbe says an amazing, important idea. We'll see this and we'll stop. The etzem inyan adira, the essential reality of a dwelling place in the lower realms, kefi shehu ba'taiva shalamayla, as it exists in God's taiva above, kfar naseh, was already brought about, bahabriya, in creation, b'shas briyas ha'olam, on the first day of creation, 5,785 years, 11 months, and 28 days ago. There was already a dir b'tachtoinu. Meaning, as soon as the Eibusha created the world, what is the world be'etzem? Essentially, what is the world?
Dwelling place.
A dwelling place of God in the lower realms. What's the problem? You and I don't see it. That's what it is. I mean, when the Eibusha looks at the world, where am I? Where am I hiding? No. When the Kadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, looks at the world, what does he see? What we think it is, or what he knows it is? What he knows it is. He sees the world as it really is. What's the world? The world is an expression of godly existence in physicality. What does godliness look like in physicality? Bow down to it, don't be an idiot. God says 50 times in the Torah. There's over 50 negative commandments about avodah zarah. Because if you understand anything about reality, you might think that since everything ultimately exists only because God exists, so then I can serve him by giving cover to those things that he created. No. God says over and over and over and over. Don't do it. Right? There's certain things he tells us not to do once. Yes, we get it. That one in 50 different ways he tells us not to do it. Right? Why? Well, because once you understand what reality is, you might get carried away and think, well, this is just an expression of godliness, so then I should somehow bow down to it. It's easier to bow down to it than it is to bow down to something I can't see. No. Don't go there. God says over and over and over again. Why? Because what's the world be'etzem? Etzem inyan adira kefishu bataiva lamayla kfar naseh bebriya b'shas briyas ha'olam. When the Eibusha created the world, already what's there? A dir b'tachtonim, a place of unbelievable godly reality in what we call tachtonim. Because what's the tachtonim ultimately? Eibusha. It's all him. Ein od milvadei. There's nothing else. Ella, kafi shu mitzad habriya, but as it is in terms of created reality, that's you and me, harizeh be'elam. It's concealed. What does the Eibusha want? What's the ultimate purpose of the creation of the world? That this dira should be in a state of revelation, meaning you and I should be aware of the godliness all around us and experience the godliness all around us. ubegidrei ishtalshelus, within the context of created finite reality. That we should understand that the finite is as much, and on a certain level, even more powerful expression of Elokus than infinite godly light. Wow. So the world be'etzem is a dir b'tachtonim, and the Eibishter wants you and I to appreciate that. V'zeu chiddush, and that's the chiddush shenifal al yedei avodas ha'adam, and that's what you and I bring about, the new reality that you and I bring about through our avodah. Shia gilu elokus b'olam, there should be a revelation of godliness in the world. Are we creating a dir b'tachtonim? We're not creating a dir b'tachtonim. There already is a dir b'tachtonim. We're revealing the dir b'tachtonim that exists in Olam Hazeh. We're seeing reality as it is and not what it isn't. Naturally, we see what it isn't. We see the external veneer of it, and we lose sight of what's really going on, because it's all elokus. And then what's our avodah? To see through that veneer and to see the godliness in everything and realize that from day one, what's the world been? That's what it is. We don't have to make it that. What's that very, very similar to? And it's so important to understand. Your amunah. You don't have to reach a state of amunah. Every single Jew has a state of amunah. Every Jew is a maamin ben maamin. What's that? And you understand why, because you've learned about it. That level of your soul that is the source of your emunah, what's that? Yechidush b'nefesh. The level of your soul that's one with the Eibishter. Well, we've talked about it. We talked about it in Ani L'Doidi. That's what's being revealed in Elul. Ani, who the real Ani is. Who's the real Ani? Someone who's existentially, essentially connected to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's what a Yid is. Okay, and that's the deepest place in your Nefesh Elokis, in your godly soul. What's life about? Bringing that essential reality into conscious reality. Consciously, I might be aware of the taste of chocolate and little else. Okay, what's our avodah? To bring that super conscious level of emunah into conscious reality. Are you a maamin? Yes, that's who you are. That's the nature of that's the deepest, most essential part of who you are. Is that part of my conscious reality? Or sheken or shalom. Depends on whether I've been able to bring that level down into conscious reality, and if so, then I live a different life. So the Rebbe is saying the same thing about Elokus in the world. What's the world be'etzem? Elokus. Ain't no avodah. There's nothing else. It's all him. What's our avodah? To come to a point where you and I appreciate that and live that and experience that, and that's called dir b'tachtonim. And there will come a point where we experience it so powerfully that the whole world will experience that, and that's called Yemei Mashiach. That's called the real dir b'tachtonim. That's what the Eibishter wants. He wants the world to be a place where every creature in the world experiences his existence. But he wants that to happen by us. Why? He had a taiva for it. Why do you have a taiva for such a crazy thing? So far, it's taken a long time. We've been at it for 5,785 years, 11 months, and 28 days, and we haven't managed to do it. Each of us have done it in little ways in our own lives, okay, but in the big picture, there's still headlines that seem to be contradictory to the idea of God's existence. So those headlines will disappear soon. Okay. If there's any other copies lying around, please pass them up here, because we'll learn this even after Rosh Hashanah. We'll learn a little bit, and then we'll do a Yom Kippur Sikha.
Rabbi, you said finite was a deeper expression of?
The what? I'm sorry.
Finite was a deeper expression compared to infinite.
I know, go.
Finite
Is a deeper expression of?
well, can be ultimately a deeper expression of godly reality. For you and I, the fact that God can be revealed in finite is a bigger chiddush than the fact that he can be revealed